Like any other creation myths around the world, Egypt's own version is complex and offers several stories on how the world unfolded. From thousands of centuries ago, it was believed that Atum, the sun god, created the earth all by himself out of chaos. Where the earth was seen as a sacred landscape, a reflection of the sky world where the gods resided. The creation myth was recounted in the sacred hieroglyphic writings found in pyramids, temples, and tombs. It took a long period of time before the universe was created, and gods established kingdoms as they live on earth. After the gods left and lived on the skies, pharaohs took over. From the book of death they wrote it all, how the god Adam created the world. In the very start of everything appeared a stuck direction is what is streaming. It was a god who has 4 pairs of deities. It was a god named Nun. Nun was personified as 4 pairs of female and male. Each represents one of 4 principles, namely hiddenness, infinite water, lack of direction, and darkness. Adam created himself out of none by an effort of will, by uttering his own name. After creating himself, Atum created other gods and humans. He took responsibility in bringing order to the heavens and earth. He is the god who holds the Ankh, a symbol of life, and a scepter called Was that symbolizes authority. According to the pyramid texts, at a time the Egyptians called Zetapi, Atum created 2 offsprings. Shu was said to be the god of air and Tefnut as the goddess of rain. Atum and his children lived in peace until one day, both children decided to plunge in the primordial waters and explore it further. Due to the fear that Atum would not see his children again, he sent Hathor, the goddess of the sky and known as the Eye of Ra, to look for Shu and Tefnut. After the safe return of the twins, Atum cried because of immense joy. These tears turned into human beings. Shu and Tefnut separated the sky from the waters. They produced children named Geb, the dry land, and Nut, the sky. When the primeval waters receded, a mound of earth appeared, providing the first solid dry land for the sun god Re to rest. During the dynastic period, Atum was also known as Re, meaning the sun at its first rising. Just like the twins, Geb and Nut produced another set of gods. Geb and Nut produced 4 gods: Seth, Osiris, Nephthys, and Isis. Their generation completed and made a group of 9 gods from Egypt. The creation myth of Egypt does seem complex in any angle. However, it profoundly influenced Egyptian culture. It inspired many religious rituals and provided the ideological basis for kingship. And the beliefs of Egyptians about gods and goddesses are still preserved until now, as it is written in history forever.
Good day everyone, I am Arabella Ardela Santos and my report is about the tragic love story of Isis and Osiris and how Seth's jealousy over his brother Osiris leads him into killing his brother. So as you can see behind my back is a finished product of my painting. So now let's move on how I paint this and how I tell the story of let us not forget about Caesar and Cleopatra, or even Romeo and Juliet. Isis and Osiris, the gods of ancient Egypt, had the first ever tragic love story in history. The story of Isis and Osiris serves as a metaphor for the transformative power of love. For more than 3,000 years, Isis and Osiris, along with Seth and Nephthys, are successors of the Egyptian deities Geb, who stood for earth, and the goddess Nut, who served as the sky. When they were old enough, Osiris and Isis were wed by the sun god Ra. Isis and Osiris were married despite of being brothers and sisters. They held the titles of king and queen of prehistoric Egypt. Seth and Nephthys, their other siblings, were also married to one another. Isis, who was considered by Egyptians to be the mother goddess of the universe, was the most powerful goddess in ancient Egypt, and even more potent than the other gods. Her veneration spread throughout the Mediterranean region and eventually became one of the major religions of the Roman Empire. She was also the goddess of medicine, fertility, healing, and wisdom. Isis and Osiris were in a blissful state of love. Their passion could not be surpassed by a moon or even star. Isis and Osiris were benevolent and righteous because they were content in their union. Their days were spent feeding the world as Isis and Osiris combined their powers to produce an abundance of food from the fertile Nile and the rich soil of Egypt. They were therefore loved by many people and given honors greater than those given to their brother Seth. This was noticed by Seth. Inability to relax due to jealousy, the respect he had for his brother quickly turned into hatred. He forced Osiris into a coffin and threw him into the rolling waters of the Nile in order to escape from it. There were several instances of conflict between Osiris and Seth, though the reasons for each one may vary. Others said that Osiris allegedly kicked Seth, according to one version, while others said that Nephthys was the object of an affair. But regardless of the reason, Seth took his revenge and killed Osiris. The death of her husband upset the childless Isis. She was so distraught that she changed into a dark bird and flew all over the place looking for her beloved Osiris. She eventually discovered the coffin embedded inside a tree that had grown around it over time. She looked everywhere for his body parts with her sister Nephthys. Then she encountered Queen Astarte in Phoenicia while looking for her love. To cut a long story short, Astarte discovered that Osiris' body was concealed in her palace. As she made preparations for his funeral, Isis carried him back to Egypt and hid it in the Nile Delta swamps. Set, her evil brother found out her secret and opened the coffin and hacked Osiris' body into 14 pieces and dispersed them in various directions. Isis remained unafraid. She rowed a papyrus boat up and down the Nile in search for her husband's missing body parts. It took her a long time to find them all. Isis then arranged each pieces of Osiris next to one another, connecting them with wax and gold. The goddess then revived Osiris using the force of her love so they could share one last embrace. Now that she was no longer grieving, Osiris was free to descend and became the king of the underworld, ruling over the dead. The story continues when Isis became pregnant with an Osiris child as a result of that loving gestures. Horus, the falcon-headed god who was their son, developed into a strong example of how love can bring about life, even in the face of extreme adversity. To give birth to him, Isis hid in the papyrus bushes of Egypt's delta. Feared Set would murder him to keep him from taking the throne of Egypt as is rightfully his. When he was a baby, poisonous creatures like snakes and scorpions were a constant threat. Isis used spells to remove their poison from him. And according to what I've searched, motherhood was an important role for an ancient Egypt women. Real-life children in ancient Egypt faced similar threats from snakes and scorpions. In order to cure or protect their children from their poison, ancient mothers used a small stele known as Horus Sipi. These artifacts depicted Horus, the child who's holding and standing on dangerous animals. The spells inscribed on them invoke the story of Horus being stung by a scorpion. Mothers would pour water over this stelae while reciting the spells and use the water to heal their children. Horus was raised by Isis with animosity for his uncle Set and the knowledge that he was the legitimate ruler of the realm. When he was an adult, he presented his case to the Ennead, a panel of 9 Egyptian gods. In front of these judges, each party makes their case. The 2 contestants were then given a number of challenges in response, with Horus winning each one, occasionally by deception. The case went on for over 80 years. Isis seduced Set and convinced him to accept Horus to claim the throne. Horus succeeded in winning the competition to sail stone ships by plastering over wood to resemble a stone. Isis is often shown wearing the symbol of an empty throne on her head, suggesting her husband's absence and that she, herself, was the seat of the pharaoh's power. She carries the Ankh, the Egyptian hieroglyph of eternal life. When in her funerary role and as the protector of the dead, she is shown with wings. The ancient Egyptians believed that the Nile River flooded each year because of the tears Isis wept for her dead husband. And every year there was a ceremonial death and rebirth ritual. And that concludes the tragic love story of Isis and Osiris, as well as my report. I hope you enjoyed my report. That's all. Good day!
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jasper Jade Sampson, your chief flight attendant. At this time, please fasten your seatbelts and prepare yourselves as we are about to explore the wondrous world of Egypt. Also, refrain from browsing through your social medias for you to appreciate the beauty of our destination. Thank you. Seth, the god of destruction, had murdered his brother Osiris, the husband of Isis, father of Horus, and the ruler of Egypt, to take the throne in Egyptian mythology. When Seth was seated on the throne, his reign was full of terror. However, Osiris and Isis had generated an heir named Horus, and is prophesied to rule over the skies and will bring back the light to Egypt, ending the darkness brought by Seth's reign. When Horus was already an adult, he decided to claim his throne that was stolen by his uncle Seth, which ignites a war between the two. Seth has the sympathy of the sun god Ra because Seth protected the sun god from the serpent of puppets. Seth proposed a challenge to Horus. Both would have to transform into hippos and should be submerged in 3 months. Horus relied on his goddess mother Isis to take Seth's vulnerability to kill him, but the goddess felt sympathy for Seth and could not kill him. This betrayal enraged Horus, which pushed him to attack his mother, cutting off her head. But the god thought the deity of knowledge saved Isis and replaced her head with a cow's head. The clash between Seth and Horus continued for years. During the battle of Seth and Horus in the desert, Seth managed to block Horus's eyes. Due to Hathor's help, the goddess of love, Horus had his vision restored. After that, the court of the gods demanded a reconciliation between Seth and Horus. The evil god Seth pretended to be benevolent and invited Horus for a feast in his palace. During the night, Seth took an action to make Horus unworthy to the throne, but Horus managed to defend himself. Horus decided to take revenge with the help of goddess Isis, who placed her divine seeds in the lettuce leaves and offered to Seth. When Seth ate the contaminated lettuce, he began to deteriorate in front of everyone, and a golden disc emerged in his forehead. Thoth grabbed the golden disc and put it in her own head. Seth was humiliated, and that was when, after 80 years, the court granted Horus to take the throne that was his by right. Seth's fate was a trouble with Ra, the sun god of the skies, and his enraged screams to be heard with thunder. And so, Horus's reign began, and all the pharaohs who one day reigned over Egypt were among his descendants. Ra, the sun god in Egyptian mythology. This god is usually depicted as a being with a man's body and the head of a falcon. The sun disk is over his head. He had been one day the greatest of all gods, But time wore him down, and finding himself too old, he decided to relinquish the power and go to the skies. This god is one of the most revered figures in Egyptian mythology. As the sun god, one of his duties was to drive away the darkness. And to accomplish his work, the god crossed the sky on his sunboat, lighting the whole world. But when the twilight came, he and his vessel plunged into the sea, towards the underworld. There, he would have to sail through the dark world and cross the 12 gates, which would be the 12 regions of the netherworld. Ra took an hour to go through each gate. Osiris was in one of them, the lord of the underworld, whom Ra always visited to pay his respects. But before leaving the underworld's darkness, the god was attacked by the terrible snake Apophis. This force of chaos tried to destroy the god's vessel, and each day the serpent seemed closer to accomplish her desire. Apophis once managed to swallow the sunboat, putting an end to the sunlight in the morning, but the serpent failed to hold the god in her stomach and regurgitated him. This event was marked as a solar eclipse. However, destroying Ra's boat became more difficult since Seth, the god of destruction, after losing the dispute of the supreme throne for Horus, had been condemned to navigate with Ra across the skies. He helped the sun god defending his vessel against the terrible serpent, defeating it several times, making Ra's underworld journey safer. The god Ra was a figure worshipped throughout Egypt, but this god was especially adored in the city of Heliopolis. The god's prestige was so vast that other traditions of Egyptian religions of antiquity merged the god's depiction along with the greatest figure of their own pantheons. For instance, the figures of the supreme gods Amun and Atum were also known as Amun-Ra and Tum-Ra. The god's name was used by many pharaohs. Ramses is a well-known example. His name means son of Ra or the son of sun, and so the pharaoh would strengthen his divinity before his subjects.
Bunnies, I am here again, and for today's video I will teach you how to create your own DIY instructional material. And before that, hit the notification bell and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you! Anubis is the god with the jackal head. He is an Egyptian divinity associated with life after death. Since this deity is one of the ancient Egyptian gods, his position has changed over time. Anubis was previously regarded as the primary deity associated with the dead and the god of the underworld, but this duty was shifted to the god Osiris. The jackal god was also revered as the deity of embalming and mummification. During the mummification process, it was typical to see a priest wearing a jackal mask. The deity was also regarded as the guardian of graves and cemeteries, thereby guarding the bodies of people who passed to the afterlife. Anubis was the son of Nephthys, the wife of Set. However, his son was not conceived through her relationship with her lover because Nephthys was disguised as the goddess of Isis and therefore mated with Osiris. Set, having accepted his treason, prepared against Osiris, murdering him and spreading his body parts over Egypt. Anubis assisted the goddess of the gods' burial ritual after Isis recovered all the body parts. As a result, Anubis turned Osiris' body into the very first mummy. Anubis became the deity who brought the spirits of the deceased to the underworld to be judged by a court presided over by Anubis. The lifeless heart was used as a scale by the deity, and the feather of truth was placed on the opposite side. If the heart was heavier than the feather, it means it was weak, and it was subsequently given to Ammit, the heart devourer, and a demonic monster. On the other hand, if the feather was heavier than the light heart of the righteous and good soul, Anubis would bring the person to Osiris, and the deceased would enter a life after death. During the era of Greek dominance over Egypt, the god Anubis related to Hermes, who is also a divinity in Greek mythology and who carried souls to the underworld. This connection gave rise to a god known as Hermanubis, who grew prominent under the Romans. Anubis is undeniably one of the most well-known divinities in Egyptian mythology.
House music.
The category is Egyptian Eleganza.
I am really confident with what I am wearing. I am really feeling the happy vibe with my outfit today. And I'm really confident that I will win this challenge because of Hathor. From the head to toe, I put a lot of effort with this outfit and of course with my makeup. And again, I am your goddess Hathor. I'm sure I'll be on the top this week. I'll win this challenge. I'm so confident and also I love how I portray the character because this is me. I'm the goddess Bastet.